Well, howdy, partners, and welcome to today's Explainer. Saddle up because we are venturing right into the untamed landscape of modern artificial intelligence. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide on this trail. Today, we're putting on our cowboy hats to explore a massive, game-changing shift happening right now in the global AI race. We're going to break down exactly how to survive and thrive by understanding the new dynamics of AI models, how they interact, and how we can use them to lasso and wrangle some incredibly complex business problems. So, let's hit the trail.
To get our bearings, we've got to look at how this vast territory of AI is divided into two very different domains. We've got the high-powered Western frontier, and we've got the bustling commodity settlements. On one side, you've got the towering peaks of intelligence, these massive, highly expensive fortresses of cutting-edge research. Think of models like GPT-5.6 Sol and Fable 5. They're the trailblazers doing the heavy lifting of complex reasoning. But cross that river and you hit the commodity settlements. These are your everyday, reliable townsfolk, the standard, low-cost, fast-moving models handling the daily chores, sorting, summarizing, extracting data. And listen, to win the West today, you need to know how to navigate both sides of that river.
Think back to the early 2000s when personal computers were really taking off. Listen here, if you don't learn to ride this new AI wave, just like folks did with the PC back then, you are going to get left in the dust. And I don't say that to cause a panic, it's just the new reality of modern business. We are entering an era where understanding how to leverage these AI frameworks, well, it isn't just some fun experiment for the tech-savvy anymore. It's basic business literacy. You don't need to master every single line of code overnight, but you absolutely have to understand the lay of the land to keep your career and your business moving forward.
All right, moving right along into Section 1, Frontiers versus Commodity Models, the trailblazers versus the townsfolk. Now, it's a pretty stark contrast between the expensive, trailblazing heavyweights and the reliable, fast-working townsfolk. Frontier models, they are the absolute leading edge. They've got skills machines have literally never had before. We're talking complex math solving, multi-step logic, deep multimodal understanding. But they demand billions of dollars in compute infrastructure just to run. On the flip side, you have your commodity models, like the older GPT-4 variants or basic llama models. These are the mature, established townsfolk. Their capabilities are kind of fixed, but they're highly optimized, incredibly cheap to run, and lightning fast at automating everyday operations.
Now, for the longest time, the big Western tech giants held a strict monopoly on that expensive frontier status. But, well, there's a new gunslinger in town from the East. It's called Kimi K3 by Moonshot AI, and it is a massive disruptor. Why? Because Kimi K3 is an open-weight model. That means its core architecture and weights are publicly accessible. It effectively democratizes true frontier-grade intelligence for developers everywhere, without locking it behind those giant, expensive API walls. Honestly, it's like someone just handed out the blueprints to the most advanced bank safe in town, totally for free. So let's actually break down this showdown. The Western frontier strategy has heavily relied on massive proprietary infrastructure and soaring compute budgets locked inside closed-source ecosystems. But the Eastern frontier response, led by Kimi K3, is achieving elite reasoning parity not by outspending the massive American compute budgets, but through hyper-optimized algorithmic efficiency. They are pulling within just a few benchmark points of the biggest models out there, and in some cases, they're even beating them, all at an absolute fraction of the cost. It's a real game changer.
And, relying solely on those massive budgets, well, it's starting to show some cracks. Even the biggest sheriffs in town, like Google, are finding out that just throwing more raw compute at the problem is hitting diminishing returns. Google actually reportedly had to delay its mid-2026 Gemini infrastructure upgrade because of what's called synthetic data saturation loops. Essentially, the AI is running out of fresh human data and starting to learn from its own recycled outputs. Basically, without novel architectural breakthroughs, just scaling up raw computing power just ain't going to cut it anymore if you want to hit the strict accuracy benchmarks required out on the frontier.
Meanwhile, OpenAI is showing off the raw, undeniable horsepower of the frontier with features like GPT-Live. I mean, imagine planning a highly specific travel itinerary. That used to take hours of switching between a dozen browser tabs, right? Well, now you just toggle live voice and state your constraints. In a 2-minute conversation, GPT Live uses real-time API polling to stream live flight data, check hotel availability, cross-reference the local weather, and spit out a fully planned 4-day Tokyo trip for under $2,000. It even prioritizes hidden culinary spots and exports the whole shebang right to your calendar. I mean, wow. That is the jaw-dropping power of the frontier.
Which brings us to Section 2, Mastering Context Architecture, the Town Planner's Secret.
Listen to me on this one, because it's absolutely crucial. Context architecture is literally the highest paid skill of 2026. As these frontier models expand their memories to hold millions of tokens, the bottleneck is no longer the AI's capacity. Actually, the bottleneck is you. It's all about how effectively you pack your data feed. Think of context architecture as the town planner's secret. Learning how to curate, clean, and seamlessly inject your specific enterprise knowledge base into these massive AI context windows, well, that's exactly what separates amateur, generic outputs from highly accurate, production-grade results.
All right, moving on to Section 3, the hybrid architecture wrap running the train yard.
Think of this just like being a switch operator and a busy train yard. This hybrid framework uses a really clever router filter process system. Step 1 is the gateway. Every single incoming task hits a lightweight, cheap commodity model first, and that model evaluates the intent. Step 2 is the routing. If it's a complex problem, it gets sent up the mountain to Route A, the frontier escalation layer, where all that heavy reasoning happens. But if it's just a simple, repetitive task, it goes down Route B to the commodity automation layer for lightning-fast processing. And finally, Step 3 is the synthesis engine. That's where a commodity model acts as the final editor, stitching everything together into a clean, uniform output.
Now you might be wondering, why go to all this trouble just to sort tasks? Well, it's because of the massive efficiency gains. By offloading 70 to 80% of basic tasks to those high-speed commodity models, engineering teams are slashing their total API spend by roughly 60 to 75%. Reserving those expensive frontier models exclusively for high-value reasoning saves massive infrastructure overhead and, most importantly, keeps those dollars right where they belong, in your pocket.
All right, Section 4, Deploying Your AI Strategy, the Cowboys Routing Checklist.
So when do you actually call in the big guns? You only want to escalate tasks to the expensive frontier models if they meet a few specific criteria. Ask yourself, does this require novel logic without a clear step-by-step template? Are you trying to resolve heavy nuance or ambiguity in human language? Does the AI need to generate a multi-step strategy, critique its own plan, and execute changes on the fly? Or maybe it requires advanced graduate-level domain knowledge. If you're checking these boxes, you absolutely need the heavyweights. Route it to the frontier.
On the flip side, you want to keep the work down in the commodity settlements if you're just dealing with the daily chores. Route tasks here if there's a clear ground truth that can be easily verified with standard rules. You'll definitely want to use commodity models for high-volume processing, like when thousands of items are passing through per hour. They're also absolutely perfect for simple pattern matching, information condensation like summarizing transcripts, or strict deterministic formatting like generating a clean JSON object.
Now, we also absolutely have to respect our operational guardrails, the physical limits of our system. If you need lightning-fast, real-time user experiences with less than a 1-second response time, you've got to deploy an optimized commodity model. If you have strict on-premises privacy requirements and literally cannot use external APIs, deploy a local open-weight model like Kimi K3. And if you're working on a microtransaction scale where every single run needs to cost fractions of a penny, well, you must enforce a strict commodity-only policy. Always match the tool to the constraints of the trail.
Well, as we get ready to ride off into the sunset today, I want you to take a hard look at your own operations. Look closely at your daily workflows. Are you wasting expensive frontier logic on simple data sorting? Or, conversely, are you expecting standard commodity models to solve highly ambiguous, complex problems and then getting frustrated by the results? Let me tell you, the true gold rush of this decade belongs to those who master the hybrid architecture. So the big question is, how will you architect your workflows to conquer this new AI frontier? Think on that, partners, and I'll see you on the next explainer.